One day when you miss me, the gay night gets me.
It is afternoon, right? Good afternoon. Welcome to day one of the Inspired Home Show 2024, the afternoon of day one, and we really appreciate you coming here. I'm Peter Gianetti. I am the editor-in-chief of Homepage News, and I'm also the director of content, editorial, and education for the International Housewares Association. And all those titles sort of converge in a role that is here to help inform the industry, to help them make decisions. And that's kind of what we do at the association. It's what I'm responsible for as the editor-in-chief of Homepage News. The one question I often get asked in both of those capacities is, when is this industry as a whole going to start growing again? I mean, it went through a tremendous surge, maybe unexpectedly so, but a tremendous surge as the pandemic started to heat up. And then almost expectedly, there was the other side of that surge, and it came on fast with supply chain disruption, inflation. I can give you the list of things that you all have had to deal with the last couple of years as we try to figure out where the industry starts that sort of normal growth swing again. This is an industry that historically has not been prone to those high ups and those low lows. It's been a steady industry that's performed well during difficult economic times and performed well during great economic times. And one of the answers to where that growth may start, you're going to hear about today. In 34 years of covering this industry, I have heard often, it's not a new phenomenon, I've heard often that there's a huge opportunity for the U.S. home and housewares industry to really address the very significant Hispanic population in the United States. We all know it's growing. What you may not know, and what makes it very different on the other side of the pandemic than maybe all those times I heard about it earlier, the buying power is really ramped up right now. The influence, the cross-cultural influence, there's many countries that are a part of this Hispanic influence, and it's a bit of a mystery, perhaps, for how this industry can optimize and take advantage of this market. It's an important market, and every single company in this building looking to do business with retailers in the United States has to figure out how to address that market. It's different. It's not the same. But the opportunity is huge. And with that, we had a chance a few weeks ago to hear from Roberto Ruiz of Univision. He was speaking at a conference of trade show executives on a presentation. And Derek Miller, who's the association head here, he heard Roberto and he said, we've got to bring that insight to the Inspired Home Show in 2024. So Roberto, your title, let's make sure I have this, is Executive Vice President, Research, Insights, and Analytics. You must have a really big business card. He's going to share with you some of the real data-backed insights that are leading him to point you in the direction of growth, that new growth engine that you're looking for. With that, I'd like to invite Roberto Ruiz to the stage.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for showing up on St. Patrick's Day here in Chicago. Again, Roberto Ruiz. I lead the Research Insights and Analytics team at Univision. And it's a unique team for a media company because we have a group of professionals, marketing professionals, that devote most of their time to understand what's going on with Hispanic consumers and help our client partners grow their businesses. This presentation is about 30 minutes, and then we're going to have some time for questions. I don't think anybody should speak for more than 30 minutes unless the topic is extremely interesting. So, future-proofing your brand with America's growth engine, the Hispanic marketing imperative. There was a study done by Kantar in 2019 about worldwide brands that had growth and brands that were stagnant. And what they found, there's two ways to grow your brand, right? You can sell more stuff to the same people, or you can find more people to sell your stuff. Obviously, you want to do both. But when you separate that in that study, they found that 85% of the brands that grew had brought new consumers to their franchises. So the message for you here is this is, for most brands, a new source of growth. It's an incremental consumer, and this is why it's worth paying attention. And it's in the United States, and it's making dollars, and you don't have to think about, I'm transacting in a foreign currency. No, it's all here in our country as we speak. So multicultural consumers are key to America's growth. I mean, we're already 3 years away from the census, which, by the way, was sort of eclipsed by the pandemic. So people didn't pay that much attention. And also Hispanics were undercounted in the census. A lesser known fact, you can Google and find a lot about it. So, technically we're 20%, 18 to 20% of the population, I believe is more. But you see P&G, Walmart, Google top the list of multicultural ads driving purchase intent. All of the large brands are doing business with Hispanics. There's just opportunity for other brands that have not come in yet. So just quickly in terms of population, 17% of the US population, 18 years and over, is Hispanic. But look at where your future consumers are. More than a quarter of the remainder of the US population under 18 is Hispanic. We're not going to get into politics, but this is the genesis of some of the tensions that we are finding, right? Because a quarter of the population under 18 is actually not white. It's Hispanic. And if you add all the non-white groups, they're going to be over 50% around 2029. So we'll be a minority-majority country. Hispanics will account for 59% of the population growth in the next 10 years. 59, almost 60% of the growth is from this group. And then you look at the chart and you see non-Hispanic white on the left decreasing, Hispanic with the largest increase. But then there's also in the census significant growth in multicultural couples. Right? That is way more common now. So every number supports the fact that you should be paying attention to these consumers. It's a massive opportunity. And this is what Peter was referring to. There is a Latino GDP report. This was done by Wells Fargo. This is the 4th year they've done this study. And what they did here is they looked at Latinos in the US as if they were a country. And they looked at the spending power, and it's $3.2 trillion. So it's a very large economy. Anybody want to take a guess as if Hispanics in the US were a country, their GDP, do you think it will be top 10? Any guesses? Top 5. 5. You're right. You did your homework. So it will be US, China, Japan, Germany, and US Hispanics. And I ask you, you're probably doing business in many other countries, and you've never thought about this, like, oh my God, this is a country that I'm not even. Of course, if you're doing business in the US, you're doing business with Hispanics. That's a given. But are you maximizing the revenue that comes from these consumers is what you should be asking yourself. 91% of the labor growth from 21 to 31 also coming from the Hispanic market. Interestingly, after the recession, Hispanic wages have grown faster than any other group because they're involved in service and construction and activities that are now booming. And if you think about the purchasing power and the economy, why is that growing? And that's growing because of educational attainment. Income is directly related to education. And what we see is, that 78% is the total growth in college enrollment. 78% of the growth in college enrollment will come from Hispanics. So all good indicators pointing to the power of this consumer. In terms of age, 33 years median age here, right? Versus 43 for non-Hispanics. So think about this. If you engage with a Hispanic consumer, you have 10 more years of consumption for your brand over the lifetime of that consumer versus a consumer that's not Hispanic. you're engaging with them at an earlier age, you will have way more years to benefit from that relationship. 3.2 people per household versus 2.4 for non-Hispanics. I mean, this is for Housewares. That's got to be a good thing, right? We need air fryers with 2 baskets, bigger devices, etc. And we have more kids. 45% of Hispanic households have children under 18 in the home versus 27 for non-Hispanics. There's definitely a community with still a little bit of a more traditional view of family. There's also larger family groups because there are family members in the home. There is, an uncle and a grandma. It's very common to have larger family groups, which I'm sure is a positive for this industry here. Now, we run an economic sentiment tracker on a continuous basis with a company called Civic Science. And what's interesting about this economic sentiment tracker is it allows us to understand, how's the Hispanic population feeling about the economy, both as a whole and from an individual perspective. And we found that they're 41% more optimistic. They expect an improvement in their finance versus 33% for non-Hispanics. Think about this. Hispanics are either immigrants or the sons and daughters of immigrants who come mostly from countries in Latin America. When the U.S. hit an inflation rate of 8%, that was never seen by many people in this generation. Well, if you're from Argentina, you have experienced rates in the 5,000%. If you are from Venezuela, where I'm from, 10,000% was not uncommon. The currency, they have taken, 16 zeros out of it in the last 12 years. So, Hispanics are less faced by these economics headwinds than non-Hispanics and adapt very quickly. 51% expect to have a higher income, and 46% expect that they're going to invest more. So it's a very resilient and optimistic consumer and community. And, we say this vibrant audience is fueling America's growth. And if you connect with their culture and their identity, they will connect with you. There's also a significant amount of white space out there, meaning, yes, there are crowded spaces in, every wireless company advertises to, engages or markets to Hispanics. Every auto brand, but not every financial institution. I'm sure not every houseware brand. So when you look at this, you look at the white space and you can say, oh, my competitors are not doing anything. This is an opportunity for me to come in here and grab incremental consumers that I talked about before. So I'm going to talk a little bit about language because we get this question all the time. So 65% of Hispanics are actually born in the U.S., and 35 are foreign born. These figures are from the census, and without getting again into politics, obviously we've seen a large influx of immigrants recently. It will take years for that to be reflected in the census, sadly, because the census mechanism for measuring new people in the country is the American Community Survey, but the chances that people that have come here through the border and whose immigration status is not very defined, taking the American Community Survey is remote because most of this survey is taken online. There are some of them that are mailed. So in other words, we have a Hispanic group that has many things in common and some things that are different. But one thing that is common is language. One uniter of the Hispanic community is the Spanish language. And we see those headlines, Gen Z Latino Americans are reclaiming their culture through language. Camila Cabello says speaking and singing in Spanish connects to her childhood. We see a ton of retro acculturation when people have kids. They start singing lullabies to their kids in Spanish. They want to make sure that their kids are bilingual. But basically, being bilingual provides an economic advantage. You can find a better job if you speak two languages. You can think different if you speak two languages. Most of us don't realize that In order to have thoughts, we need words. And if you have 2 languages, you have more words. Therefore, can have more complex thoughts. So bilinguals, trilinguals, they're good for society. 82% of Hispanics, 18 to 49, speak Spanish at home. So while we get asked the question of, well, why do I need to do stuff in language if these Hispanics are bilingual? Well, because we live in what I called a 300% world. So we are 100% Hispanic, and this is the pan-Hispanic identity that we acquire when we live in the US and connect with other Hispanics. So Hispanics in Latin America don't know much about Argentinian food or Salvadorian food. But if you're here, you quickly learn Mexican food, Puerto Rican food, Venezuelan food, even, Argentinian. That's the pan-Latin identity. That's one identity you have. Then you have your country origin identity. You're Mexican American, Venezuelan American, Colombian American. And then you have your American culture. You're in this country. You are American. When the Mexican team loses in any tournament, Mexicans immediately move to root back for the US if they're still on. So we feel American. So the reality is that this phenomenon of acculturation, we don't necessarily are shedding one culture to bring another culture on. One body can carry more than one culture. And that's the beauty of the Hispanic consumers, that they are multicultural inside the Hispanic community. They're carrying several Hispanic cultures. And language is really what unites all of this. But you shouldn't be thinking about consumers that are going to shed all their identity. All their immigrants came from Germany, Italy, and they lost their language. Well, there was no German or Italian television in the 50s or in the 40s or in the 30s. There was very limited means to connect with people in your country of origin. Now we are always connected to culture, right? As a matter of fact, those devices that we all carry in our pockets, I call the smartphone a cultural enabler. Everything that you want in your culture, your family, your music, your sports, everything comes through that little device. So keeps the culture alive. That's one of the few positive things I found about this. So Espanol, we say, wins brand love. Hispanics say that they appreciate businesses that speak to them in Spanish. And 84% say that these companies deserve their loyalty. And we did with Nielsen a study. This was 2021 called, and I think it's available online. It's called the ROI of diversity. And what we found is that brands that were using diverse media channels were receiving a return on their ad investment that was 4 times larger than brands that were not doing this. And you can probably answer this question, why? Incrementality. They were bringing incremental consumers. They were bringing consumers that they did not have before. Now, the question that I get often asked is, well, okay, do I need to do the whole experience in language? And the answer is no. We did a piece of research specifically for this that, once engaged, Hispanics will transact in English. Nobody is expecting in the US a full end-to-end in-language experience. You know that there will be some things in language, but not everything will be in language. So 60% of Hispanics agree if an advertiser runs ads in Spanish, it makes me more likely to visit their website, even if it's only available in English. As a matter of fact, Home Depot years ago had their website in Spanish and English, and they found that the most likely scenario was that people shopped in Spanish and then they toggled to the English side when they were going to pay, because they were concerned they were going to get a different price if they were on the Spanish side. They wanted to make sure they were getting the mainstream price. And many retailers like Target, for example, have a page with return policy and some of those things in Spanish, the rest in English. 71% agree I'm comfortable with shopping and buying on English language only websites. By the way, we've seen a huge surge. Amazon is an advertiser and a client partner with us, and we have seen a huge spike in activity on Amazon. So this first session, let me see, am I on time? Okay, perfect. This first section, this is the highlights of the consumer, and we'll have a Q&A if you guys have questions after this. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the business case through retail data, and this is we have a partnership with Circana, formerly known as NPD. We've been their clients for years, and we collaborated with them so they could develop a tool that represents Spanish-speaking Hispanics. One of the challenges is when you have tools like Circana has a receipt scan. So the way they have all this data is they have a panel of people that scans their receipts. So we work with them so the app to scan the receipts is also available in Espanol. And that guarantees that Spanish-speaking Hispanics or people who feel more comfortable with an in-language app are going to be represented in the panel. So what is in there? Excuse me. Retail sales in 2023 for Hispanics were $336 billion, so 16% of retail sales. So it's pretty impressive as this population is significantly younger. I mean, you could think, well, why is it not 18, which is the percentage of the pop? Well, because in that 18% of the population, there's a lot of babies who are still not consuming. So for how young the Hispanic population is, representing 16% of total sales is quite impressive. And then, we always get asked about what's going on with online versus brick and mortar. So if you look at this slide, right, estimated total spending, 69% in store, 31% online, compared to 64% in store and 36% online for non-Hispanic. So Hispanics are leisure shoppers. So shopping is still considered a leisure activity, a discovery activity. I want to know what's there, what's available, what's new. So they like brick and mortar, which I think is an opportunity. There's always good things happening when you're in store. You have adjacent items, you have impulse items, you can generate more sales. So this data is for 12 months ending December 2023, so brick and mortar was down 0.3, online +1. So we do see online picking up. Is this going to ever be exactly the same? I doubt it. I still think that Hispanics are going to over-index in brick and mortar versus online. Obviously, during the pandemic, they pivoted immediately to online, but it came back stronger this time. Where are they shopping? So these are the top channels in terms of buyer penetration. So I call your eyes to off-price. Off-price where you can find value brands, right? In the off-price here is the Big Lots, the Burlingtons, the Five Below, Home Goods, Marshalls, Nordstrom Racks, etc. Hispanics are value shoppers. They want mainstream brands at great prices. In general, immigrants are a little bit more brand loyal because they find in brands a reassuring aspect of performance. So they try to look for brands. The other place that over-indexes here is Warehouse Club, and we talked about this. We talked about bigger families. We talked about extended families. So it makes all the sense in the world. I have a few slides also on category performance, given that we are, at this show, which, there is a number of categories that are critical. So in terms of home improvement, and this is buying visits, right? 745 million buying visits, which is 14%. I think what's interesting here is also, 72% in store. 9% of Hispanic buying visits included home improvement. What's interesting is Hispanic plus 20% online. So online is growing for this segment. Housewares, which is, I think, the core of the business for the people here, 467 million. That's 16% of the buying visits. So if you're not thinking about this consumer, you're not thinking about 60% of the people visiting. 5% of buying visits in 23, including houseware items, online growing double digits there, plus 15 versus year ago. Everything is growing for Hispanic more than non-Hispanics, plus 15 versus plus 13, plus 9, plus 8, so an attractive consumer, and it's 69% in store versus 63, so very significant difference for Housewares for in stores. Appliances, obviously significant 3% only of buying visits, but again, versus year ago, online up more. Everything is higher for Hispanics here, though we see 48-52, the relationship between online and brick and mortar is closer. And the last is the stats for home decor. What caught my eye here is online plus 29, very, very significant there in terms of increase. So, what we say is that investing in our community means investing in the future of your business. I'm not asking anybody to think about the Hispanic consumer here because we have a diversity and inclusion drive. No, this is not about that. It's about business. It's about dollars and cents. Our dollars are green, and they're going to make your brand grow. We say that you can do this authentically, winning hearts and wallets. And it's all about what we call la cultura. It's all about doing your homework about what are the insights related to your brand and the Hispanic consumer that you can leverage to create powerful communication vehicles that generate engagement. So what is different about Hispanics and this particular item and families? How do they use it? How is this going to make your life better? And translate that into sales. This is the only slide I have about us as TelevisaUnivision. We are the largest media company in Spanish language in the world, operate in the US and in Mexico and throughout Latin America. And we encompass every vehicle from linear television to streaming to radio to digital to our branded studios. And we play a big role in terms of soccer. 53% of soccer hours, regardless of language in this country, are on our air. So we're big players in that area. I don't know if there was something here that I missed in terms of we reach 53 million people a month. Interestingly enough, even in linear TV, many nights we're the number one for Gen Z, 18 to 24. We have a very young audience and significant growth. I want to close with a couple of things, but I wanted to show you this case study of Walmart. Walmart is one of our largest partners. They have been partners with Univision for over 20 years. And I think they know how to do it right because they think about the Hispanic consumer at every stage of their marketing process, and they actually use us as consultants in many cases. We just did a partnership last year for the Latin Grammys, and what was interesting about this partnership, this was all about proving Walmart as a digital destination. So this was not the brick and mortar. This was driving people to Walmart digital, and this is because they're feeling the heat from Amazon, right? So we promoted these Walmarts. We have your thing messaging through custom contents. They partnered with this guy who is a Latino singer from Colombia called Camilo. They integrated some of their top holiday gifts in shows. We still have a little bit of the old TV where we can do a lot of integrations and into shows and demonstrations. And the conversion was amazing. I mean, this gathered over $1.7 million of additional purchases in Walmart.com. And this was one night that we did with the Latin Grammys last November. I'm going to show you the commercial that they did with subtitles.
¡Familia!
¡Camilo!
¡Vengo lleno de regalos!
¡Y de Walmart!
Para mí, los Latin Grammy son el comienzo de todas las fiestas que se aproximan.
¡Vámonos para los Latin Grammy! ¡Vámonos!
Este es para ti. Dale, Camilo. Como saben, uno de mis lugares favoritos es con la tribu cerquita y poder agradecerles por todo el apoyo y el amor que me dan.
¿Y qué es lo que tú quieres?
Y quiero que todos celebremos nuestras tradiciones latinas que son tan bonitas. Un comer sabroso, natilla, buñuelos, guau.
Y no podía faltar el coquito.
¡Qué rico! Comprar en Walmart me deja mucho tiempo para festejar, para parrandear, para changuear, rumbear. Y mucho más tiempo para celebrar. Walmart no solo tiene todo para las fiestas, tiene todo para las tuyas.
So, I was getting ready for the holiday season. And the insight here, when you do focus groups with Latinos, they always tell you that that in this country, they have a lot more things that they ever dreamed of having. What they don't have is time. And that's a very deep insight into, how intense our lives are in this country compared to other places. And the whole message there is if you're buying this online, you're going to have more time to celebrate and more time to spend with your family. A full pivot into a powerful insight. Before we go to questions, I have these 5 recommendations. So always get asked, how do I do it right? So, know your audience through consumer insights and data. Build the business case. There's no sort of like shortcut. You should do, as a good marketer, you should do your homework. Understand how this consumer behaves, how they connect with your brand, what are the nuances, what are the similarities. Not everything has to be different. That's why I say include the multicultural consumer at every stage of marketing plans. You don't know how many times we get a call saying, we're going to launch this initiative. And we didn't think about Hispanics, and now it's almost done, and we want to stick a Hispanic component at the end. Well, that's always harder, more expensive, and it's not going to be as effective. If you start on day one your marketing planning and say, hey, what are we doing about Hispanics? We used to do this, 5 years ago, we had this little Post-it notes that said, what about Hispanics? And we handed them all around clients, Walmart, Kraft, etc., right? And if you keep this in mind at the beginning, then you're going to be way more effective. You may be shooting a commercial, and all you have to do is shoot an extra scene and insert it, and now you have an asset that you can leverage. Or you're doing something, a video or something on YouTube, you can do all of this together. Measure. If you don't have Hispanic KPIs, then it's very hard. What doesn't get measured doesn't get rewarded or tracked, or it's not gonna survive the test of time. So it's important to set the right KPIs to make sure you have the right tools to leverage this. And ideally, this should be on executive scorecards. It is on, if you look at places like Walmart, like P&G, like Unilever, like, Verizon, T-Mobile, it's in all of their scorecards. Executives have a responsibility for how are we doing with Hispanics, and they track that. Test the audience, but don't abandon the audience. I have a love-hate relationship with Hispanic Heritage Month, because we get all these calls from brands, can you come speak about Hispanics, and we're going to do something for Hispanic Heritage Month, and then don't do anything else through the year. That's not going to work. 1 month is not going to work. You have to be consistent over time and not give this to the intern. This is big enough to have an important role in the organization. And last, be proportional and consistent with marketing spend. 18% of the population, you don't need to spend 18% of your budget because you're reaching Hispanics in English, but you can't spend 1%, right? It's got to be somewhere in there, somewhere in the middle, and you should look at what your peers, your competitors are doing and adapt to that. That's really the way to do it right. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming here on a Sunday to listen to this. And
thanks,
I'm
Roberto.
Sure if you have questions.
Roberto Ruiz from Univision. We have some time for questions, but I'm going to get started with a couple of questions. And I'm a journalist, and words matter, and the words you choose matter. I've always been curious. Is there a difference, and does it matter, between Hispanic and Latino?
No, we use those words, interchangeably. Latino has a little bit more of an activistic, connotation, and Hispanic technically does not include Brazilians. That can be, but I think we Hispanics or Latinos are not.
Does it matter from a marketing perspective?
I don't think so. Hispanic is the most politically correct word to use.
Right.
But you open the door for me to talk about Latinx.
Yes.
Because we have now Latinx, right? And you know what percentage of Hispanics want to be called Latinx?
I have no idea.
3%, right? 3%. Latinx is a marketing corporate America, the diversity and inclusion term. I have nothing against it, but consumers don't care about it, most of them. It's a marketing thing. It's a journalism term. People
Those darn journalists.
People fundamentally consider themselves from their country of origin dash American, Mexican American, Venezuelan American, and then consider themselves Hispanic or Latino.
Right. In that vein, is there a danger, you talk about the cultural opportunity, but is there a danger in overgeneralizing within the Hispanic community? For instance, one person might use, one country may be prone to cooking a certain way.
Yeah.
Another country may be prone to using a different implement to cook the same thing.
Yeah, in general, I think there are more commonality. We should find themes that unite us.
Right.
Okay? Now, yes, there are different names for different things in Latin America, and you should be cognizant to it, just to not commit a faux pas. That's why you should have an expert or an agency or somebody to consult with so you don't use the wrong name. But you don't need a communication for Dominicans and one for Mexicans and one. You could do that, but it will not be cost effective, and there is also not a lot of targeting vehicles. Now, if your product is money transfer, I used to work in that category for MoneyGram. Yes, you will have campaigns because you have different offerings to different countries. But if you are Coca-Cola, you don't need to do that. And by the way, now there is, in the old days, we used this Walter Cronkite Spanish that, everybody, it was an accent-less Spanish. But lately, marketers have been more open to just let actors have their own accent. We are in this melting pot of Latinos in this country, and we know that there is an Argentinian accent, a Colombian accent, and that's fine. And actually, we're seeing that more in novelas, in soap operas and shows where there's people from different countries and they all have their accents. So I can count very limited cases where you need to be thinking about extreme customization by country.
It doesn't have to be that complicated.
No, it doesn't have to be that complicated. There's a lot of commonalities.
Anybody have some questions we'd like to give you a chance to ask? Hold on a second. We have microphones. We're going to give you a microphone. Hang on for a second.
So thank you for being here today. I appreciate the insight. So after language, I'm curious, if you're a manufacturer of a product, what would be maybe your next 2 or 3 things you might ask a manufacturer to look at? Color, material, functionality, if they're trying to understand distinctions in the Hispanic market?
Well, it's hard to generalize. I mean, if I'm thinking about a Shark Ninja, who's one of our newer clients, right? If I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about, appliances that can cook for more people. Because this is not going to be a home with 1 or 2 persons. It's going to be a home with 5, right? So I'm thinking about that kind of functionality. Food is a big uniter here, right? Like, food is how we show love. And the Irish love food too, and the Italians, so that doesn't make us that different. But I think what makes that in the Hispanic community, the importance of this obsession with family is definitely more important, and you should use that lens to look at the product. So how is this product going to be used by, the family? And the reason I say, we always talk about Hispanics and family, and then that's, oh my God, that's so stereotypical, right? But, when I'm going to use an example of my family, right? My 26-year-old son, my wife goes, but why haven't you called in 2 days? And he says, Mom, I'm the only one among all my friends who talks to his mom more than once a week. And she goes, yeah, but we're Latinos. So there are differences that, to answer your question, you have to really look at what is it that product has in relation to usage. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Anyone else?
I got one. Oh, that's me over here.
Is it about golf? No.
What's that?
It's about golf?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not about golf. The biggest mistake companies make, whether it's product, but mostly with marketing, that doesn't work, that fails when they try to develop a Hispanic marketing strategy.
Well, not doing their homework, number one.
Right.
But the other one is the one I mentioned.
Yeah.
It's thinking that you're going to do a 1 month effort that is going to just move the needle all the way to the right and generate this amazing result, right? And you do not devote the resources to do this right. And then what happens is that it goes into a file that goes, we did Hispanic and it did not work, right? Well, you did not do Hispanic right. You just did Hispanic, to check the box. And then it's like, oh, it didn't work.
Right.
So the big mistake is really rushing it and doing it without expert help of some kind.
That's...
By the way, you don't have to be Hispanic to do Hispanic marketing. Some of our best clients are not Hispanics. You don't have to speak the language. You have to do the homework. It's basic marketing. I mean, you go to, we're in Chicago, Medill, great school of marketing, right? Well, you need to run the playbook. Understand the consumer, what's the segment, what's your message.
If I can just add to that, we do that every day anyway with our core product. But somehow when we're trying to add something quickly, we forget those basic practices and principles.
It goes as far as, okay, we're doing focus groups to test this new thing here.
Yeah.
Hey, tell the research company to do one focus group with Hispanics in Spanish. That's it. Yeah. And you know what? We found that the use is very similar except for these 3 things. How do we incorporate that into marketing? This way. It's not that complicated. The other mistake is overthinking it.
Yeah.
Right?
You mentioned big companies like Walmart. This is not necessarily something that requires a Walmart budget to...
No, absolutely not. Shark Ninja is not the size of Walmart, and they're doing great. I mean, they're not small either, but yeah. There's many things you can do, things on, with us on digital or, that are not multiple millions of dollars. No, absolutely not.
Very good. Yeah. Anyone else have a question? Yes, sir. I don't know if it's a fair question, but go ahead. Univision. Full disclosure.
Yeah, but you're still new, so you're going to ask questions.
I'm new to Univision, but Roberto, I wanted to ask if you could speak to, for some of the brands that are here that are new or that are thinking about the Hispanic market or entering the segment, what are some of the resources that we bring to our brands, to help you get started in this journey? And do you have to be a huge brand to do this work or not? And what can we offer?
Yeah, thank you, Salvador. I lead a team called Strategy and Insights, and what we do for brands is we provide sort of free consultation as to how to get started with Hispanics. And we buy Circana data is very expensive. We buy Nielsen data. We buy Polk data for auto. We have all these syndicated data sources. So we're not coming here with our idea. We're coming with hard data. And we can show you what your market share is versus competitors. So we put together business cases for brands. Salvador is in our business development team. And what we do is illustrate the growth opportunity to entice brands to work with us. But in reality, the funny thing is that we are the business development engine of this industry because a lot of brands that we activate not only buy us, they buy many other things. But what we want is brands, we're the largest company in the space, so what we want is brands that engage with Hispanic consumers and generate growth. So we do creative consultation, we take creative pieces and adapt them. We have done full commercials for everybody, including, Mondelez to Procter, actually, we've done spots. So we do a whole 360. And we also will work on measurement.
Yeah.
So on setting what the KPIs and how to measure.
Good. Last chance. Oh, let's go. Hold on a second, please.
Thank you very much. From a social media perspective, if you run a campaign, do you need to do 2 different segments, or is it better to do with American influencers versus Spanish influencers?
I think that we brands normally have Hispanic influencers and American influencers. I mean, there are some quite popular Hispanic influencers that brands have been using along the lines. And I think you're better off having Hispanic influencers if you want to have hard impact. And that's something we can help too. We have a huge social group. But yes, you're better off having a Hispanic influencer. You'll be more effective.
I would think that.
By the way, especially if there is a Hispanic nuance to it. So actually, Shark was going after Dyson. So for the Grammys and Premio Lo Nuestro, they had one of our hostess, do her hair with the Shark Ninja competitor to Dyson. You're better off doing this as a more targeted approach rather than just using your mainstream influencer.
I would think I mentioned earlier how in the 30 years I've been doing this, there's always been discussion of how do we serve the Hispanic market, but social media, digital communications, your ability to talk directly to the consumer and the consumer to talk directly to you is probably why one of the big differences between then and now in terms of optimizing that opportunity.
Now, what is important is in all of these efforts, none of us are advocating for, 2 different brand positionings. The brand is one. You have one brand that is communicating in 2 languages. So your brand ethos is the same. That's why all of this has to be connected. And that's why I go back to my initial suggestion that you include the Hispanic consumer at the beginning. So then you have your own brand brief with 2 different segments.
Anyone else? Roberto can, we got more. Now, see what happens? You get them going. Let's start back over here. That's okay. Who was that? Oh, there we go.
Thank you. In terms of prices, for example, in Colombia, we are seeing the prices are going down. Actually, the market is evaluating the cheapest prices is going to elementary stores. And what is going to happen here in U.S. in terms of pricing? The consumer is evaluating the prices in terms of costs and benefits?
The buying power price sensitive.
Yeah. Well, I think that's hard to answer from a global perspective. But what I can say is that Hispanic consumers are, what we call value shoppers. They are looking for recognized brands. So they will be willing to pay a slightly higher price for a brand that they recognize, that they have seen, marketed, that they have. That we go back to the stat that 84% say that brands that talk to Hispanics, the consumers say, okay, they deserve my loyalty. So you'll get a better price if the brand has recognition, rather than trying to just go with a super low cost approach.
I know there's a couple more. I know you want one, sir, but I want to get a couple others who haven't had a chance to ask yet, please. Up here.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. My question is, do you think that where products are manufactured has an impact on whether someone in the Hispanic community will buy that product? Or because a lot of products nowadays are, China, India. Does that have an influence on whether those products will be bought?
Can I add to that? There were some people in here that worked for companies that manufacture in Mexico.
No, I know. Yes. But I mean, almost Mexico is now the largest trading partner to the U.S., larger than China. So, I mean, everything is made in Mexico. I recently bought an Audi, which was my 7th in a row, and all the previous 6 ones were made in Germany, and this one was made in Mexico. And it's wonderful. I'm a research nerd, so I'm not gonna, I don't have data for that. So I can answer with my gut. And I don't know that. I think that as long as they trust the brand, I don't think that the country of origin is an issue anymore. Yeah. The lines are so blurred as to where things are made, right? I mean, yeah.
One more.
One more.
Hold on a second. Can we just get you a microphone, please, so everyone can hear you? Thank you.
So this is back to the brand and the pricing. You know, in one of the slides, the retailers were like Targets, Mass. So I understand that they're going to the brand in those types, but what about higher retailers? What percentage of Hispanics are going to higher retailers?
Luxury.
Luxury retailers. Yeah. I don't have
luxury.
I'll have to get back to you.
Yeah,
I have to get back.
Sonoma
Now, interesting. Depends on the category. So if you're talking about beauty, you know, it's completely counterintuitive for Hispanics over-index in luxury beauty products. You know, when you do focus groups, the most common line is "my face has no budget." This is women, but the insight behind that is that beauty and the way you look in our culture is as important as what's inside, right? So the outside matters, and beauty is a social equalizer. So women will go and tell you, "I'm coming to this meeting. I may not be as educated in terms of college or whatever degrees as these people, but I look as good or better than all of them," right? So it gives a sense of security. So what I'm saying is, for these kinds of products, you know, there will be an over-index in things like Sephora or, you know, Bloomingdale's, the luxury.
What about home products?
Higher-end. Home products, I don't have data. You know, there's so much I know in memory. Yeah. I'll gladly, you can email me and I can have the team work on it and provide an answer with pleasure. But I'm not going to make it up. I don't do that. Huh?
We beautify our pot of whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
Everyone. Roberto, thank you so much.
Thank you.
He can stick around for a minute or two after. He's got to catch a flight, but if you want to connect with him and follow up with him, feel free to grab him before he goes. Thank you.